And we are back with Live from the Heartland, broadcasting over WLUW 88.7 FM. And thanks for that little flash of the Burrito Brothers.
Flying Burrito Brothers.
I forgot the flying, yeah. Right now, welcome to Live from the Heartland, Jessica.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Jessica Fujan.
That's correct.
Yeah, Jessica.
Minnesota.
Well,
I didn't say that, you did.
She's
Near
from
Blue Earth.
She's from Chicago now. Mm-hmm. How long have you been with Food and Water Watch?
I actually just started with Food and Water Watch last August, but I'd been volunteering with the organization for about 2 years with Emily Carroll, who is now our Midwest Region Director.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about the organization before we get into the details. The details too. What is Food and Water Watch? When did it start, and what does it do?
Right. Food and Water Watch was created by Winona Howder, who was an employee of Citizen Action for years and a friend of many people who are here today. It began about 6.5 years ago, so we're a fairly new organization. We're a national consumer advocacy nonprofit, although we do work on a lot of environmental issues. And our mission is more or less to protect the food and water that we all rely so heavily on, our most essential resources, to ensure that they're safe, sustainable, and accessible or affordable to the people that need them.
I know that you guys were behind the bottled water pledge that we took some years ago.
That's right. We do a lot of campaigning around taking back the tap, or to promote the use of tap water and to rely more on our municipal
That was actually
resources.
a movement that seemed to sweep around restaurants, commitments to not using bottled water. Mm-hmm. I did fly in the face of it, I confess, by putting out a water from downstate Illinois with a Heartland label. But those are all
You created your own
gone.
bottled water?
It's confession
We
time.
did for a while. But I took a lot of hits from nuns and other people,
So you're
I
reformed.
don't drink out of bottled water anymore. We have all kind of filters and things we're doing.
Well
But
done.
let me ask a question about that, because what really impressed me was that I read somewhere, heard somewhere, that if all of the bottled water that was sold in 1 year, if the money from that was used to build water plants, there was enough money to have potable water for everyone in the world.
I had not heard that specific statistic, but what we do know is that a lot of people's municipal water sources are woefully underfunded, and that's why we see problems with water privatization in a lot of places, especially here in Illinois. So if we want to support our local water systems, then we've got to make sure that that's a priority for us and for our local government.
When Evtushenko, the poet, came here years ago, one of the things he wanted to do was to see the Chicago filtration plant, because they say we have a good filtration plant.
It's true, Chicago water is very good.
Yeah. Okay, let's.
That's why I don't buy bottled water in Chicago.
Part of the reason that we hooked up to, get you here today was the upcoming hearings.
Yeah.
And that's related to genetically engineered foods.
That's right. It's a
and
very
labeling
exciting
them.
time. So we've been working for about a year, the entire time I've been with Food and Water Watch, on getting legislation passed in Illinois to label genetically engineered foods. I'm sure a lot of people listening and maybe watching have heard that this movement has gained a lot of speed, especially since the Prop 37 ballot initiative in California. And we're really proud that we've made huge gains here in Illinois. So on September 17th, which is next Tuesday, there will be a public hearing downtown with the Senate subcommittee on food labeling to kind of hear testimony from experts about genetically engineered food and help our Senate determine, I guess, how quickly we can get these foods labeled.
Do you have, what is the leaning of that group at this point? Do you have any indication?
Right now, I certainly can't speak for the senators, but we know that we've brought forth some really inarguable points about the importance of genetically engineered food. Surveys say that nearly 90% of consumers demand labeling for genetically engineered foods, and I think it would be very foolish of our legislators not to take that kind of demand into account.
They do it all the time, though. They don't take our stuff into account all the time.
Well, right now, Food and Water Watch and a lot of other organizations are doing some really incredible organizing, and I think that any of us could agree that there's been more outcry and a lot of action about this issue lately, and many people, I'm sure, remember the March Against Monsanto that happened almost 2 months ago now, in which thousands of people showed up downtown to demand transparency in our food system.
And Jessica, where does the Monsanto, what do they call it, the Monsanto free ride, meaning that they were taken off of being watched? Do you know what I'm talking about? Monsanto got...
I think you might be referring to the Monsanto Protection Act.
That would be it.
It's not, I don't believe that's actually what it's called.
No, that's
a colloquial term, but the
Right.
Monsanto Protection Act was a small amendment that was attached to a budget that
food bill?
was... Well, it was attached to the federal budget, which was kind of sped through Congress's. Congress is having a lot of trouble lately, and unfortunately, that was one of the consequences. Is we've got these very naughty amendments that are flying through our federal government. And
When you say naughty, you mean Knotty or naughty?
I mean naughty. Naughty.
Okay, I think they're both. But
But here in Illinois.
go ahead.
Jessica, one of the things you and I were talking to before the show, and we talked about the genetically engineered, genetically modified foods and the upcoming battle or the debate that's going to take place. And in the leading up to you being on the show, I looked at some of the material. And there are going to be people there who are pro-genetically engineered foods, as well as people who are opposed to genetically engineered foods, and some kind of decision is going to come out of that debate that will influence the Illinois Senate.
That's right.
And it will affect all of our lives in terms of what we're able to buy and eat here in Illinois.
Absolutely.
Can you fill us in on that debate, and also you as an organizer, how you have to deal with people who are opposed to genetically engineered foods really wanting you to take a hard line, and you refer to it as taking a longer view and trying to get more done over a longer period of time.
That's right. That's right. So obviously, I think everyone here and everyone listening ate something today, and
Not yet.
unfortunately,
I'm looking forward to it.
oh well, I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm so
that
sorry.
happens on Saturdays.
But most people who ate today, if you've eaten any processed food, or people who have already eaten a genetically engineered corn, soy, or cotton product, which we find really shocking and disturbing in that most people are unaware of the fact that they've eaten genetically engineered foods because they're unlabeled.
Right.
So the passage of SB 1666, or similarly the Genetically Engineered Food Labeling Act, would give us as Illinoisans the ability to not only know what it is we're eating, but have better control over the foods that we buy and feed to our families. So this debate is obviously really close to home here in Illinois. We're the belly of the beast, an agricultural supercenter where we're putting forth a lot of commodity crops and feeding a lot of those commodity crops to livestock. So
Right.
there are people in Illinois, especially I think in the University of Illinois system, where a lot of funding is put forth by the biotech industry. Companies like Monsanto give a lot of money to researchers to create new products, and so we've heard both sides of an argument. And I will say that unfortunately the biotech industry has a lot of talking points that we think are kind of fatally flawed, and we can go into those if you like. But what we are worried about at Food and Water Watch is the fact that there is a lack of transparency in the food system, that people demand that transparency, and that we've got a lot of farmers in this state, and we see that genetically engineered foods hurt farmers, and these are people that we want to respect and uplift and ensure a lot of security, both financially and for their health in the future.
So, is it not true that the UK and the Europe in general already has food labeling?
That's correct.
Has required it?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a European Union wide. Is it? Yes.
So the European Union and approximately 64 other countries in the world already institute some kind of food labeling, and many have strict bans on the cultivation of genetically engineered crops. This is because, unfortunately, GE crops are alive and can reproduce, and so contamination of non-GE crops is a major concern. And I was talking before about how genetically engineered foods can hurt farmers, and this is definitely one of those ways. Here in the United States, over 400 farmers have faced lawsuits brought on by companies like Monsanto when contaminated food is found to be growing in their fields, and these, I guess, the findings of this contamination, are discovered by people who are, not permitted to be on people's land. The testing is done without anyone's knowledge.
Can you tell us a little bit about the the role that genetically engineered food has played around the world. I think I saw a documentary, something about India and the devastating effect that the genetically engineered crops had on other crops, etc. Mexico
Absolutely.
too.
So one of the great arguments that's put forth by the biotech industry is that GE crops are necessary because they're feeding the world. And how will we feed this growing population without genetically engineered foods? And we all know already that there are 2,800 calories produced per day per person in the world, and most of that food does not go to feed people. It goes to feed livestock, or it's excess that is oftentimes not even used.
And we throw away a lot of food.
And we put a lot of it into our cars.
Exactly. And so what you're actually referring to is a great documentary. I believe it's called Seeds of Deception.
Right.
It's about Indian farmers who have been kind of put on this GE loop. They were suggested genetically engineered crops with promises of higher yields, which we have now proven, GE crops do not produce higher yields. And because these seeds are more expensive, because you have to buy them every year, and because they're paired with either herbicides or pesticides, there are a lot of expenses in terms of input. And in these communities, and especially rural agrarian Indian communities, people fell into a debt cycle with these crops. And what I think you're referring to is the shocking statistic that there are tens of thousands of Indian farmer suicides.
Yeah.
That's right.
That have been related directly to genetic engineered food cultivation and the debt cycles that I was just describing.
Enormously tragic in every way. I'm going to do one more thing here. One other issue that is on your webpage.
Yeah.
And that's fracking.
Yeah.
Which we've already talked about here, and we will continue to talk about from in this program till they stop it. Where is Food and Water Watch working to affect that?
Yeah,
and
so
how?
at Food and Water Watch, we believe that there is no such thing as safe fracking, that you cannot regulate it into safety, and it's an acceptable burden on the environment, on the communities that surround fracking areas. So we believe that there should be a ban on fracking here in Illinois. And one of the things we're really concerned about right now is that fracking is being allowed on federal lands, which are public lands, which belong to you and me.
That's right.
And here in Illinois specifically, the Shawnee National Forest is under threat of fracking because it sits over a natural gas shale bed. So just last year, Congress passed regulation to allow fracking in the Shawnee National Forest.
It's called non-regulation.
And unfortunately, I think many of us in northern Illinois have not visited southern Illinois to see how incredibly beautiful the landscape is down there. And as someone as a taxpayer who owns a tiny sliver of these federal lands, I think it is a completely unacceptable risk to be taking with something that belongs to all of us for the profits of a handful of corporations who are then selling natural gas abroad. So at Food and Water Watch, we are trying to ban fracking on federal lands and really in the state of Illinois in general.
Will you tell us how people can contact Food and Water Watch, and then I'm going to ask you another question.
I would love to. Here in Illinois, I would love it if you contacted me. My name is Jessica, and I would love to talk to you. My email address is F as in Frank, UJAN as in Nancy, at F as in Frank, WWATCH.org. We also have a fabulous website at foodandwaterwatch.org, and you can even follow us on Twitter at FWW Illinois.
Hallelujah. All right, I have a couple of friends and neighbors, Earl Silbar, who will be a guest on the show next week, and Jane Alexander, have both contacted me about the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreement. And my understanding is this is a deal between big corporations and countries to our west, and they are putting this on a fast track through Congress, trying to put it through. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about that, a little teaser for next week, and what you're doing about it?
Yeah, so our executive director, Winona Howder, has been quoted as saying this is the biggest corporate grab for power in history. This is a deal between 12 countries on the Pacific, as you were saying, the negotiations for this free trade agreement were held behind closed doors, but with the inclusion of 600 corporations corporations who got to weigh in on the deal. And now we don't think we're going to let Congress weigh in. And this really is one of the most threatening free trade agreements we've ever seen. Specifically for our campaign on genetically engineered food labeling, we're worried because any laws we pass could be undermined by this partnership agreement.
Because they see environmental safeguards as trade barriers.
Exactly, because this is anti-competitive for the corporations who wish to sell their products. So for instance, I believe Canada is being sued right now by a fracking corporation for a ban on fracking they have, and I believe it's in Quebec. I would hate to be quoted.
I think that's right. It's in Quebec.
But they're being sued right now, and if we want to see these kinds of horrible scenarios replicated in which corporations have greater bargaining and judicial power than countries do, I think we're in a lot of trouble.
Yes, we're definitely in a lot of trouble.
You know, one of the things we're doing here with the Live from the Heartland show with our with the help from the Heartland Cafe is we've been putting on some special events. We recently had an event on political repression in the time of Obama. We have more planned, so you might want to stay in touch with Michael at heartlandcafe.com or Katie at heartlandcafe.com. That's Katy. And one of the things we're trying to do is put together a program in the next few weeks before Congress goes head to head falls down around this issue maybe. We're going to put together an event where we're going to explore it in greater length, and we'll keep you posted on that.
So, Jessica, just finally, this public hearing, where is it? Time? And can normal people, non-experts, people who just like the idea of having water to drink and air to breathe and food to eat?
Yeah, we're actually inviting everyone who eats to this hearing. So if you are an eater,
all right, that's very inclusive.
A lover of food, only those people are invited to this hearing. Again, it's on September 17th. That is next Tuesday. It's at 10:30 a.m. at the Blandick Building downtown. That's at LaSalle and Randolph, or 160 North LaSalle. We'll be in room C600. We would love to see you there. I think there will be hundreds of people who are interested in supporting their right to know and demanding that the Illinois legislature put our interests over the dollars that the biotech industry can spend.
We're out of time.
We have to thank you for being here.
You've been listening to the Live from the Heartland show every Saturday morning at the Heartland Cafe. I want to thank everybody who makes this show possible. We want to thank, I'll just say that. Everybody who listens, everybody who helps make it happen. We encourage you to do good in the world. The world needs all the good that you do. All power to the people. Thanks to me. You got a card?
Of course I do.
You're listening to 88.7 WLUW.